Power Hour. We have a guest today. You can see there's three of us. It's not just J and J today, but we're gonna talk. It is gonna be wrestling today, guys. I know. I said last week we weren't gonna talk about wrestling, but it all comes back to wrestling. When do we not talk? JPJ, when is there an episode? I don't think we've ever done an episode of this show, even when we said no wrestling talk today, that wrestling hasn't come up at some point.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've had one. There's definitely been small, even in the non-wrestling ones, we end up talking about it for at least a few minutes.
We have to.
I don't think there's a wrestle-free episode of the Power Hour yet.
But that's fine. We're wrestling people. I'm wearing a wrestling shirt. Like, it's not ever good. Oh, look at that. See, we're just wrestling.
Luna Vachon. Look how great that shirt is.
Luna Vachon. All right, let's go.
Oh, yeah,
but we do have a guest here today. So before we don't need to talk about ourselves right now. We need to introduce our guest. But I always find it best when the guests can introduce themselves, because who's better at putting themselves over than that person? So introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are.
Sure. Hello, people. My name is Colby Applegate. I am a freelance writer, editor, now author. I spent some time at a school called Full Sail University, which wrestling fans are familiar with, and even spent a little bit of time with NXT on the marketing team. And so I am here to talk about my book and wrestling and whatever else comes to mind.
Yeah, that's the best way to be with us, isn't it? It's just like whatever else comes to mind. Before we talk about all your good stuff, how is life treating you? How is life in this crazy time that we're living in? But how are you doing? How are you managing?
I am taking it day by day. Let's put it that way. I've learned I cannot plan too far in the future. Because you just don't know what's going to happen. So, but I'm all right.
Yeah, it is a bit like that though. It is like, I want to plan a trip in 6 months, and then you're like, I cannot go on said trip because now this is happening and this thing is happening and this thing is happening. So it is kind of the best way to be, is taking it day by day, but managing, it's, I think at the beginning of this, 2 years ago, we all thought it'll be like a month top, and then we'll be back to normal. Yeah. And 2 years later, we're
over here it was 2 weeks. Just a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, well at one point it was
man, you got to slow the curve a few weeks. We're like,
and now we're like, a
few weeks, huh?
But it is what it is, and I mean, there's no point in just being angry and stuff at the world. You just got to kind of take it as it comes. But JPJ. We were talking last week about the Royal Rumble. We were talking last week about the frustration of the Royal Rumble, I guess, in some ways, and not in everything. There was some high points of the Royal Rumble.
We were so ready to talk about that Royal Rumble, we dropped the episode early. That's what we did. We were like, we're not waiting until Thursday. This is going to be Monday. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We are back on Thursdays, by the way. We're back to normal. We're not angry anymore. Well, at least I'm not angry anymore.
Yeah. But far better spirits.
But just off of the Royal Rumble, how did you feel about the Royal Rumble? Did you share certain frustrations that seem to be happening with a lot of people?
So I was actually at the Royal Rumble. So my perspective is a little bit different from everyone else's, just because it was my first Rumble. I didn't realize there was so much anger until obviously after the show, and I got on social media and I was like, oh, this is how people reacted. Whereas normally when I'm at home watching pay-per-views, I'm like, as soon as the match is over, I get on Twitter and I see, okay, what are people saying? And I try not to base my opinion on what everyone else is thinking, but sometimes it can kind of be swayed that way.
Oh, yeah.
You guys can relate to that. But I was upset at certain booking decisions, but because of the enjoyment of being there, it didn't take away that much. Now I'm just kind of a little disappointed in some of the direction on the road to WrestleMania, but I actually did start rewatching the Royal Rumble last night. I only got through Roman and Rollins before I ended up going to bed, but I'm excited to keep watching it and see how it came across on TV.
What was the energy like in the arena? Was it high? Was it a good time?
Yeah, the first 2 matches is where the energy was the highest, and that probably was maybe the same way from you guys watching on TV. The pops during Roman and Rollins was insane, and when Rollins hit the curb stomp on Roman, like the instant pop that got was really cool. And then obviously everyone was hyped for the first Rumble of the night. And you have Sasha coming out first after returning on SmackDown, and then Melina shocking the world. But then it's almost like as soon as she fell out, it kind of like sucked the energy out. And the energy still kept going throughout the match. But then when Ronda won, I will say when Ronda came out, I swear the building was shaking.
Yeah, like, it was loud. It was loud.
Very loud.
It was a huge reaction. But her winning was still kind of like, okay, well, that's happening.
Yeah, it was a monstrous reaction. May I ask how close you were to the melting sign? That was
I was up high. So I had a view of the entire arena, and I saw the sign. Well, first I noticed the entire section below the sign got cleared out.
Right.
And then I saw the sign being lowered. And all I could think was, this sucked so bad for Becky and Doudrop, who were already in a difficult spot to begin with following the Rumble. But then they have the entire crowd is distracted by a sign that's on fire. And so that sucked. And I know it also sucked because right after the Women's Rumble, like, you know, we all tried to go to the bathroom or go get food, and the arena was running out of food and water. And the lines to the bathroom were so long that I had to skip that and come back because I didn't want to miss anything. So I think the entire vibe was just super off right after the Women's Rumble. And so, yeah, the whole WrestleMania sign was a mess.
Oof.
Ugh. I was at...
Well, you go on, JPJ.
I was going to say, when I was at SummerSlam, and you couldn't buy anything because it was not a cash event. You had to have card. There was no cash. You had to buy everything with cards, and the system went down.
Oh no, just no. I've only ever been to one pay-per-view, the one that come here a few years ago. So that's fun. I think JPJ is frozen. His internet is a piece of work, so he'll pop back in a minute. But when I went to Super Showdown in 2018, I remember leaving to go get food at one stage, and they had run out of a lot of stuff, and everyone was very frustrated. This must be like a thing that happens at a lot of stadiums and arenas. Like, the Dome in St. Louis is that was like 40,000 people. Like, you would think they would have this kind of stuff, you know, like, underworks and like, okay, we're going to keep going with this because, like, why in the hell how could you run out of water? like how could you run out of water and food in an event that has this many people when you know that it's not like it was just like announced the day before? Like, you knew this was coming for quite some time. So when Becky and Doudrop, on television, coming from a television point of view, I didn't know about the sign until way into that match because I just started seeing like stuff. I'm like, the sign is on fire. What the hell does that mean? Like, when you're just scrolling Twitter. But did you notice it pretty instantly?
Yeah, I would say in the early parts of Becky and Doudrop, and then I noticed like they were in a headlock for quite a while. And I was watching the Tron because I was kind of like the better view, and I could see Becky talking to Doudrop and the ref, so they were clearly communicating, trying to like buy some time. But I think they realized pretty quickly that they were gonna just have to move on and not. What they should have done was, had they known it was on fire, taken like some kind of intermission, send it to the pre-show panel or something.
Send to a clip.
It would have been something. Yeah, especially with half the venue already trying to like, you know, do other things besides watch the next match. It was
it's a tough spot. Like, going on after a Rumble is like the spot that nobody wants, and Becky and Doudrop were unfortunately the victims of that, which is weird because Becky is so, you know, this big superstar, and she's in that spot. But just have the sign melting and all of that kind of stuff. I can't believe the sign caught on fire. Like, I've never heard of. We've had how many Royal Rumbles and all of this stuff? We've had, you know, 30 Rumbles at this point, more than that, and it's never caught on fire once, and this literally started to melt. So that's fun, you know. And then it did it again at the end, from my understanding. It melted. So. But it is what it is. But you are here for a specific reason. We could go on about the Rumble forever, but why talk about that? You are here for a reason. You kind of reached out to me to say, hey, like, I've got this book that I'd like to talk about, and I just want to kind of, I guess, to spread the word of what you've done. But what, first and foremost, take us through what this actually is, what this book is about, why you've created it. Give us the whole rundown.
Sure. So last year, well, I should say in 2020, when things locked down and everything, I wanted to fill my free time with some writing and thought, well, I could write a book, I could do this and that, whatever. So my passion is women's wrestling, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what can I write about? So I ended up writing a 2020 women's wrestling year in review. And it's a short little, it's a little book.
Oh, yeah.
The cover is designed by myself. It's a lot of text on the cover, and
Yeah.
it's a very text heavy book. But it pretty much just broke down the year through the top American companies on TV, WWE, AEW, and Impact. Just looking at like the biggest news items, and then win-loss records, and I used their win-loss records and their stats to kind of make rankings and see who had like better booking trends and all those things in 2020. So I've never self-published before. That was my first project. Self-publishing, I sold 50 copies of the book, which was my goal. So I was like, cool. People who I've never met before bought the book and left reviews on Amazon. So that's pretty neat. And I decided, well, I guess I will do it again for 2021 and try to make it bigger and better and improve it however way I can. So now I have this thing.
Look at it. It's illustrated and everything.
Yes. I got the cover professionally done by Nicole at Nakamura on Instagram. I decided to feature Bianca, Deanna, Britt, Roxy, and Camille for their title reigns in their respective companies. And this book this year has, like the 2021, has basically a news timeline, just taking it day by day, breaking down this happened on this day, and it covers releases, signings, injuries, returns, debuts, all those different things. And then I added a results section, which added quite a bit of page length compared to the first one.
Damn, yeah, you've really expanded.
Yeah, so it has results for WWE, AEW, Impact, NWA, Ring of Honor, and a bunch of indies that I could find, researched, that I kept track of myself. I keep track of results for several companies just for fun, I guess. It's something that I started years ago when I was a kid. So I thought, well, why don't I actually do something with all that extracurricular work I do for fun?
Yeah.
So I did that,
definitely.
and I added Ring of Honor and NWA to the stats and ranking section this year, since they kind of rebuilt their women's divisions as of late. I will add that the first one has a foreword written by Thunder Rosa, so that's a pretty cool feature on the first book. Right before she signed with AEW, she was still with NWA. This one does not have a foreword, but does have an interview with Maria Kanellis Bennett that I conducted last year before the Ring of Honor women's division kicked off. So that's a pretty cool piece on just seeing how she used her talents to help build a women's tournament. And now it kind of discusses the journey of Roxy being seemingly looking like the chosen one from the get-go. She was on the very first episode of Women's Division Wednesday. And so it just kind of follows her underdog journey and things like that.
Yeah, so you seem like to be a pretty you like facts, you like statistics, you're fascinated by that kind of stuff, I guess I could say.
Yeah, I have some of the PWI like almanacs that they used to do. I think that's kind of what inspired it, was reading those as a kid and getting back into the PWI magazines over the last couple of years. So I thought, well, I want to produce something that is less opinionated, because I've done a lot of opinion writing on the internet, but something more of like, here's a piece of history that fans can have, and even wrestlers if they want it.
Yeah.
Because never know. So yeah, it's not a lot of history in one book.
That's a
Covered in
cool
a
thing
year.
too, because there is a lot of opinion pieces out there. It's really easy for someone to give their opinion and complain about this or what they like about this, but you can't really change what are facts. Like, you're just presenting facts. You can't argue or alter just because of bias or anything like that. It's not like this is my favorite wrestler, so here you go. Like, this is just what happened in the year and kind of giving you the facts. But let's rewind a little bit, because obviously there's a fandom, and you obviously have worked somewhat inside of the wrestling business, I guess you could say. What kind of, I guess, what draws you to women in the business, and where did this all kind of start for you with? I know it's a very boring question, but it is fascinating to know someone who's so interested in like statistics and facts and stuff like that. Where did this all kind of begin with wrestling?
As a kid, at least, I was drawn to wrestling from the storyline standpoint, the good versus evil. I was a big comic book fan as a kid, so that was like, oh, okay, I'm going to root for this person because I want them to kick this bad person's butt because I don't like them. And then even as a young fan, I tallied win-loss records for fun. I don't remember why I did that. I think part of it may have been WWE had their like Power 25 rankings. I don't know if either of you
I remember those.
And I think that was cool to me. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do that for fun. So I had like lined pieces of paper that I wrote everyone's name out on and put the tallies on, because I still have notebooks upon notebooks of results for WWE going back to late 2011 when I started watching wrestling. So I have all the results documented for myself. And I guess that was fun back then. So I thought, well, why not, make it something for that. As far as why women's wrestling, I guess I've always kind of rooted for them more because they have been the underdogs in the industry, and witnessing the women's empowerment movement in sports entertainment over the last few years has been really cool. And working with them in NXT, seeing them become main eventers on their own has been really cool. So that was one reason why I was drawn to them, and I just wanted to give them their own platform.
Yeah, well, it is just really fascinating. JPJ, you've always said that while we have really similar opinions on wrestling for the most part, but we do have differences in where our wrestling fandom kind of started and come from. But to know, like, I haven't really talked to that many people in my time that I've done this, of people that are purely fascinated by like results, facts, statistics. Everyone's just always kind of clamoring to give their opinion and be like, I like this person because this and this and this. Like, it is kind of fascinating from your point of view, JPJ. What do statistics and facts mean to you and your wrestling fandom? Did you ever get fascinated by that kind of stuff?
I wouldn't say I got fascinated by it, but when we become accustomed, especially recently with WWE, that like wins and losses matter, right? Results matter. You root for people that you like, yes, but if the person you might like is shown as a person who loses all the time or who does this, like, you're eventually going to be like, all right, you're going to look in different directions, correct? So wins and losses matter in wrestling. They always have, even though WWE, with the way they book, sometimes they don't. So we become accustomed a little bit of like not viewing it that way. But I think results in general, like, yeah, we hold Ric Flair 16-time world champion. Like, everyone knows that. Everyone knows Cena's 16th. Like, those are results because they won matches to win titles. Yep. Like, it's an important factor of wrestling that one company has records and they keep that, and the other one really doesn't shine on records at all. And I think you can tell in the booking how much that affects when one is focused on rankings and records and the other one isn't. You know?
Yeah, definitely. AEW must really help you, by the way, with doing this book, because you can just be like, well, there's their statistics. I just have to simply just look at it. You don't have to kind of dive into anything. But you know something that really would fascinate me about this book in particular, and I'm not being a shill just because you're here and being like, buy the book, but it would be kind of interesting to be like, this person always loses. I'm sick of them always losing. And then you go, well, actually, they haven't lost as much as you thought. You're just kind of thinking that and stuff like that. Do you only keep statistics of television records, or is it house shows as well?
I've only been doing television records for these books in particular. I've considered adding the house shows, but since the house shows tend to repeat themselves,
all true.
And in this past year, they seem to only feature kind of the top stars as they return to touring. I decided just to stick to TV. I also did not include house show results as part of the results section. That could change next year, but that was just something I did not include.
It'd probably be a lot of repeats, and not only that, I don't know if this is true or not. I could be making this up, but I feel like they're not running as many house shows since they've come back. I don't think it's a, they're not doing like,
I think that's correct,
Thursday through Sunday loop, and then whatever. Like they're running just kind of what they. I personally think this might be a little bit like a hot take, but I think house shows are kind of a redundant thing at this time. I feel like TV should be the only time that people are wrestling. Maybe here and there do special events, like, it's a special Saturday house show and they can go do it. But I think for the longevity of wrestlers and performers' bodies, I think you should only be doing television for the most part, pay-per-views, obviously, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. After seeing a pay-per-view in this country, I personally wouldn't pay money to go and watch a house show. I know there's some benefits to going to house shows because wrestlers have a little bit more freedom. There's no television. They don't have to worry about all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It doesn't really... That side of things doesn't fascinate for me personally anymore. I just feel like like I said, the longevity of performers' bodies, I don't know if house shows are really that necessary anymore. I don't know about you guys. Like, if a house show, you guys get live events and house shows, obviously you get them in loops. I don't get them at all. Well, who knows with the pandemic when they're going to come back here, but I don't know. If a house show comes around to your area, are you really like, I'm going to go, like, I can't wait to go to this random house show. I don't know, JPJ, do you get excited if they come to Boston?
Well, I'm lucky. I'm close to Boston. Yeah, so I get a lot of
TV.
Raws and SmackDowns. I get a pay-per-view a year usually. Like, we're getting Survivor Series this year, so we're going to have hopefully a whole weekend of things, Survivor Series they still value. So, I mean, if a house show, I'll go to a house show, but like, I don't go out of my way. Like, if Raw's coming, I'm going to Raw. If SmackDown's coming, I'm going to those,
Okay.
A house show is very few and far between. So, like, I think maybe in the last 10 years, I've gone to 2 or 3 house shows, but I'll go to every like televised one that I can. You know what I mean?
Are you the same? Are you going to a house show if it's coming to you?
Nowadays, no. When I was a kid, yes, just because the nearest TV was about a couple hours away, but house shows we could get within an hour of us when I grew up in Illinois. Now, I live in South Carolina, so we just had Raw here in Greenville, the first Raw of the year. So I made sure to go to that because I haven't been to a Raw since I first became a fan. So that was a cool experience. And then went to the Royal Rumble as well. So I loaded up on my wrestling events this month after being deprived from the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. I always say this to Americans. You don't understand how lucky you guys are to have like every few months wrestling of some kind, whether it's, AEW or WWE or whatever, just kind of circle around you and you can kind of get to it. And people are just like, oh, I'm not going to that. I'm like, what the hell? If Raw was near me, I don't care if it's across the other side of the country. I'm freaking going. Like, it has been so, we haven't had a live event for WWE come since 2019. Obviously with the pandemic and stuff like that, they haven't been. I don't think they'll get to us this year, just with where the world is at still. I think it'll be next year before we get anything else. And we've only ever had 2 pay-per-views in this country, which WWE should be running. wrestling in general should be doing more international shows. I'm not saying just in Australia, but from a television standpoint, something's more exciting when they're in another country. Like if they're in England, like I'm just like, oh, here we go. It's a London show. It's a Manchester show. Like it's going to be good. Like, I don't know, WWE promote themselves as this global brand and AEW want to be this global brand. You should probably run some television from these other places. I don't know about you guys, but if an international show, meaning they're doing an international show on television, means it's on delay, on tape, I don't get personally put off by that. I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't bother me. It's a cool experience. I remember in like 05, obviously you weren't watching wrestling at this time, but JPJ, you were. Do you remember when Raw was in Japan? When they did that one Raw from Tokyo?
Yeah.
Like, did it bother you that it was on a tape delay?
No.
It was cool.
No, yeah. When things are on delay, like every time they go to Europe, which obviously hasn't happened in the last few, but when they go to Europe, it's always on delay. You can look at the results if you want. I just avoid it because I want to just watch Raw or SmackDown like I'm watching Raw or SmackDown regularly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me, but I mean, I could see, I don't know, if the results get spoiled or something big happens to get spoiled and they're like, but like, other than that, like, who cares? Just avoid it.
I think I'm saying is, can we just get an episode of Dynamite or Raw or SmackDown, a pay-per-view, whatever. Just put it in Melbourne, put it in Sydney. I don't care where it is in this country. I will go. Like I will go to it. I'll give you my money. I paid a lot of money to go to Super Showdown because I don't know when we'll ever get a pay-per-view again. So like I went and it was a good time and like we sold out the MCG. It was 70,000 people there. Like come on, there's an audience around the world for professional wrestling. So like let's get out of this. Once we get out of this pandemic stuff, don't come over here when it's like that because it would just be just a complete mess. But let's get some more international shows. It would be fun. But back to the topic at hand. We didn't even let people know you can buy this book on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it is exclusively on Amazon as an ebook, paperback, and now this edition is available as a hardcover.
Right, so I'll leave the description in the description. I'll leave links to all that stuff so you can go in and check it out. And JPJ, I don't even believe you were in here. Pop up your book again so you can see this illustration because it's a good time. Look at that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's real good.
I will add
awesome.
that a portion of royalties / proceeds for this year's book will be donated to a mental health organization in memory of Daphne, who we lost in 2021. The details of where exactly that's going or how much haven't been figured out yet. It was kind of a last minute decision right before I published, but that is happening.
Well, that's a good thing too, because
good.
After the stuff with Daphne and everything like that too, not just because of Daphne and everything else, but I will say one thing that I do love about especially women in the business I've noticed is that something tragic happens. Like I remember when Ashley Mazzaro passed away and everyone kind of band together and it was this like sisterhood of people. And I'm not just saying only women do it. Men in the business do it as well. But I've noticed more, especially that era of women, they all kind of band together and like, hey, we need to do something to, something so horrible has happened, like with Daphne passing or with Ashley Mazzaro passing. People kind of band together and like, hey, we need to support this charity or get awareness or whatever it may be. So good for you for doing that kind of stuff in honor of that. Okay, so one more thing about the book before we kind of wrap things up and dial things down a little bit. Do you plan on doing this each year? Is this kind of something that you are feeling like you'll continue to do?
I think so. I've already started working on what I assume will be the 2022 year in review, at least compiling results as I find them on the internet and things like that. So right now I'm in a big marketing phase for this book, and I'll have to play a big catch up for this year since the wrestling world does not stop.
No, it does.
So that is some interesting roadblocks that I'm discovering with doing it yearly is trying to find time for downtime or marketing and getting back into writing and things like that. So to answer your question, yes, I am planning on continuing it and trying to improve on it every year and make it worth people's money.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really cool piece to kind of want or own because again, it is just facts. It's not like you're reading someone's opinion on whether Britt Baker can, do a DDT properly. It's not that. It is purely like, this is how many matches this person won. This is how many whatever it may be, statistic wise or facts wise, and results. And it's just a piece of history that's go. This is 2021 for women in wrestling, just to have, and like to have something cool like that, and to notice like I did like to have like the first book, which was so thin, and then compared to this book, which is so much thicker. I could only just imagine it's going to expand and grow, as I'm sure you would have to watch. Well, not that you have to watch absolutely everything, but like you'd have to know, your knowledge of wrestling must be pretty vast to be able to go like, okay, yes, I'm taking records of this and this and this. Like, you must watch a lot of wrestling.
Yeah. In fact, today I was just thinking, like, I'm still catching up from being on my Royal Rumble trip, that I have 2 episodes of NXT and Impact, and I haven't finished SmackDown. I was like, oh yeah, Raw's on tonight. So yeah, it's definitely a never ending thing that in my free time, that's usually what I'm working on, but at least it's fun. So
yeah, hey,
that's why I do it.
At least it's fun. Before we wrap up, it would be kind of fascinating, and I would like to know. You mentioned NXT, you mentioned Full Sail. How did that come about, and what was your time like with a part of NXT? I guess you could say.
Sure. I knew in high school I wanted to go into writing, and I also knew I wanted to get out of Illinois and go somewhere warmer and somewhere different. Grew up in a very small town, so I guess I decided Orlando would be the move for me. Looking back, I'm not quite sure how I did that, because that's a huge thing for an 18-year-old to go through, but I did it. Went to Full Sail. I think through watching NXT, I knew about Full Sail, happened to research their website, happened to see they have a creative writing program, and thought, oh, that's cool. I visited the school twice while I was in high school. Ironically, both times I went, Impact was at Universal filming, so I went to like Slammiversary 2015 the same time I visited Full Sail the first time, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Wrestling has always been
the backbone
with that journey. Yeah. So right out 2 months after I graduated high school, moved to Florida, went to Full Sail, got my bachelor's in 20 months. It's an accelerated program. Had a few professors who are wrestling fans, which was pretty cool. And then, obviously NXT films there, and I, within a month of being there, started helping with productions. There's like a group for production that works on the TV tapings, and then there's like a group that does the house shows, the live events, kind of the marketing side. And I did both, and then decided the kind of marketing and house show thing was more of my cup of tea, which involved like scanning tickets, helping with seating, selling tickets, and selling merchandise and social media. So that was really cool to go pretty much on the road as a student volunteer and then employee while I was in school and post-graduation, traveling with the wrestlers, but not really like kind of working with them, but kind of doing our own thing, because I had to oversee a group of college students who did all the live event operations. But it was a dream come true to go to all those house shows, work with the wrestlers, work with the PC coaches. I talked to Matt Bloom, Steve Carino, Serena Deeb, Sarah Amato every weekend. Just so many guys and gals I got to shake hands with and say, hey, how are you? They knew my name just from seeing each other every weekend. And yeah, so it was just a really cool journey. It was a temporary contract, kind of like an internship. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a revolving door in that position as a marketing coordinator was the title. My contract ended April 10th. I was one of the longest tenured interns, basically, just because I got started as a student, which isn't typical. So I was kind of an odd case to begin with, and then got to work even after I graduated for quite a while. Contract ended in the very beginning of lockdown, and then a couple days later is when they cut like everyone, and my coworkers and bosses got furloughed and later released. And so it was kind of a bittersweet end. If I wasn't ending it on my own terms, it would have been ended for me.
Yeah.
So, but overall, it was a good experience. I don't know
It's a
if
feather in the cap.
I've tried. It is. I've tried going back to join the writing team, but every time I get denied, it's probably a blessing in disguise because it's not a perfect corporate world there.
No, to put it lightly, it is not.
No.
JPJ, anything you want to ask or add to all of that, or anything with the book, or anything like that?
So yeah, you said you were the longest and you left so right before everything went down. So what year did you start down there?
So
Working with NXT?
I became a student volunteer December 2017, but then August of 2018, I got hired as an intern. So I was only a year into my program, and they do hire master's students because they kind of want like students who have been through their courses and can like handle work-life balance, things like that. They needed an employee to fill that role, and I just happened to be there every weekend volunteering because that's what I love doing and wanted to get a job some way somehow, and so ended up getting selected. And so I did that as a student for maybe 9 months, and then I did it for another year post graduation. So I got to be there for us going live on USA at Full Sail weekly. So we adjusted from doing monthly tapings to weekly. We cut down for a while. We were still doing Wednesday tapings and then 3 live events: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Eventually got that cut down to just Friday and Saturday, so we could all rest on Thursday. So I was there for a big transitional period.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then I know you said you kind of got to shake hands with the wrestlers every weekend. You got used to seeing them. They knew your name. Like, anyone in particular you just remember you had like a really good kind of relationship or rapport with that kind of stuck out to you as being super nice, or just were they all,
Everyone, for the most part, was pretty nice. I did have a pretty good rapport with Terry Taylor and Steve Carino. Serena D was probably my favorite coach to work with because she was just the sweetest, very easy to work with. We also coordinated meet and greets. So that was one of the ways I talked to the coaches every weekend. Was I had to get with them, go over the card and be like, okay, who's here that we can use on the meet and greets before the live events. Everyone was really nice. Even Matt Bloom, who is like a giant compared to me. He's just like a giant teddy bear.
Yeah, sweetheart, right?
So yeah, everyone was really cool.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, that is
Serena
cool.
Deeb is just awesome,
Oh,
isn't she?
what a great professional
So now I
wrestler.
just love
she's just
watching her.
Oh my gosh, she's just so good.
And she's getting a lot of time on Dynamite as well, which is nice to see. So yeah. Well, this is going to kind of do us, but before we run away, please promote your socials, promote your book again, tell everyone where you can get it again. Just tell everyone where you can find you, I guess I could say.
Sure. On Twitter, I am at Colby Apple G8. On Instagram, at Colby.Applegate. My book, both books, you can search Ring Post Journal on Amazon. The first one was Ring Post Journal #1 because I thought I was going to do more issues like in a year, kind of like a magazine. Then I realized how much goes into self-publishing. So the second one is just Ring Post Journal's 2021 Women's Wrestling Year in Review. Kind of gives it a magazine vibe by giving it that title.
Yeah.
But it's just a text-heavy wrestling journal in which I just spew a bunch of wrestling facts. So I look forward to doing more of that. Might get back into wrestling media world here soon. I've written for several different websites. I've been at Daily DDT and a bunch of other places. But so yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, is writing the books. So follow me on social media. I'll probably follow back. Yeah.
You're a good social follow. We're always liking each other's tweets.
Trading likes, yeah.
we always do. But yeah, I'll leave all the links in the description on here on YouTube and on the podcast side of things, so you go and buy the book. You know, all that kind of good stuff. JPJ, anything you want to promote before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I can catch me on Between Two Beards tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on the Love Wrestling platforms, me and Pluggo. But other than that, no, you can catch me here next week with you. Sorry that my internet was awful earlier.
What's new,
minutes,
JPJ?
but, you know,
Come on, what's new?
the worst. But
I actually think that it's not an episode of the J&J Power Hour, either whether it's off air or on air, where we don't have some kind of JPJ internet issue.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And I'm the one with the crappy internet. I'm in Australia.
Yeah, it's unreal. I don't know what's going on.
It's just the juju. The juju we put out.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna have to start yelling at people. Figure it out.
Oh well. What can you find me on? A little later today, after this drops, Fightful Overbooked. So Bad It's Good, episode number 3. We're doing wrestling weddings for the entire month of February, because February is the month of love. It's Valentine's. It's all of that, you know, gooey stuff. So I think we're talking about Kane and Lita.
Oh, nice.
You know, so
That'll
romantic.
Be a fun one.
So romantic. Kane and Lita's wedding. What a beautiful love story. So yeah, catch me there every Thursday. What else am I doing? Love Wrestling, Legacy of. We got the Legacy of Becky Lynch coming up this coming Monday. We just had Melina. It's all good stuff over on Love Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
This Twitch, you know where to find me at this point. I don't need to promote myself. It's weird. So I just won't. Next Thursday, maybe we won't talk about wrestling, but we probably will. Let's be completely honest. We probably will. I think Elimination Chamber is in a couple of weeks. I don't know, to be completely honest. I'm so out of the loop. I don't know. All I know is that Lita's going for the title.
Elimination Chamber is the day after that episode would air next week. I believe it's next Friday.
Or is it Saturday? Because Friday would be SmackDown. Wouldn't it? Who knows?
I think it's on a Thursday.
Or is it on a Thursday?
It might be on a Thursday.
You know what?
Yeah,
who actually knows? Who actually knows what goes on with these shows? I do know that I think we can all collectively say we all love Lita. So screw it. All the men can come back and win titles. So why can't Lita? Why can't Lita come back and win a title? I don't know. It probably wouldn't make that much sense, but what makes sense in WWE? So let's have Lita win the title. You know, I love Lita, so I'm a big mark for Lita. But on that note, we'll see you next Thursday here. Thank you for joining us on this show, because we love having guests. So anytime you want to talk wrestling, hit us up. We will probably 100% of the time say yes, because we just like gas-bagging about wrestling. So thank you for coming on. We'll see you next Thursday here on the J&J Power Hour. Peace out, everyone.